to the DIY Chameleon guys. With me is James. Hello,
Hey,
James.
everybody.
And we have a special guest in the studio, Mikey. There he is. All right. Today we are going to be talking about a very that's trouble.
No,
We have
Mikey.
the Illuminati. You know what? They pop up everywhere. I tell ya. Oh man, you never know who's going to. So today we're going to be talking about 3D printing, which is like one of the most DIY things you can be doing because you can pretty much create anything. But this can be intimidating. I mean, you got to do 3D CAD software. What the heck is that? Then you got the special machinery. So we're going to go over all of that. But before we get into that, James, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Sitting out here in the shop. You kind of brought me in on something I have no clue about, so I'm kind of interested, but I hope I don't look like a dummy.
Well, that's why we got Mikey here.
I'm the dummy.
Mikey, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, guys, for having me. And yeah, James, I'm the dummy.
Well, you're the one doing the printing, and I've never even seen the machine before, so I'm hoping to understand, and maybe you can get me interested in it.
I'll try.
All right. Well, how about you know what, Mikey? Yeah. How about we start off with let's just give an idea, an overview of what 3D printing is for anybody in the audience who may not know what it is.
Well, 3D printing is basically a tool that you can use to create anything that you want. It could be something as simple as a book stand for your books. You know, I made a book stand for my wife for her cookbooks when she's cooking in the kitchen. You can make, people are making toys and such. Like, I'll even show this off here because it's not my design, but maybe you can see. It's just a little toy, something to give to kids, and they have fun. And you can make accessories and tools, like for your enclosures, like anything that you need. It's just.
All right. So, Mikey, how do we get from thin air to a turtle?
So from thin air is basically the idea that you want a turtle. Next, you can go online and there's websites like Thingiverse, Cults 3D, where these 3D printer designers go on and they share their designs. So you can download a file, a .stl file, and using a couple of programs, with a 3D printer, you get those tools like a slicer that takes this file, slices everything, and creates the model in your printer. Sounds very complicated. It is complicated, but if you want to print it, it's not that hard. Okay. It's just you take the file.
James has got it.
James, you take a piece of wood, you measure twice, and you cut once, and this STI file is like that. So a designer creates a file. You take that file, put it into your computer, and let the program do the slicing, and it sends it to your printer, and then you come up with a finished product.
Okay, so, I got a great question.
Fire.
All right.
It's driving me nuts, Bill. It's driving me nuts. What is a 3D printer, and how does it work?
So for 3D printer, there's the resin, and then there's the filament one. The FDM one's the one that's really popular because it's inexpensive. The materials that you get for it are quite inexpensive, like just your basic PLA filament. It's just, think of it like a thread of plastic. That comes on a spool, feeds into a 3D printer, like a little unit. Mine's off to the corner. I wish I could take the laptop there to show you. And it's just basically this filament that feeds through two little gears that pushes into a hand that melts the plastic. And with the 3D slicing program, it creates this design. And it just, like layer by layer, like spreading butter on your toast, builds up this little design of what it is that you want to create. A spool of very thin plastic.
Okay.
Maybe you can see the clear it is.
Okay.
The
Yeah, I
Yep,
can see it.
resin printers. You dump a load of chemicals into a little basin, and this printer just takes your design through a file and kind of just sucks your design out of the filament, like rising out of the water. Uh, and that's kind of the idea.
So you can watch this process happening in
Oh
real
yeah,
time. You can sit there and watch it build
takes
this
a
thing.
long
How long do some of these projects
takes a
take?
long time. Um, if you're doing something small, like I've been doing these little chameleon pen holders,
Uh huh.
and that takes about 40 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So what do you think the limitations are?
The size of the machine. So if you want to make something,
Okay. So that.
so the plate on the like your most common 3D printers is about 210 millimeters. Uh, Americans get used to millimeters. It's coming.
Yeah. Feet and inches over here, buddy. I'm never changing. I'm too old.
All
to
the
change.
YouTubers I've watched in the US, they go by millimeters. It's the easiest unit of measure for 3D printing and designs, especially when you're using like Tinkercad is probably the most basic form of a program you can use to design an object. I use that for me. Like everything I've done is through Tinkercad, and it's really not that hard. Tutorials are on there. Bill, introduced Tinkercad to me because when you're watching the YouTube channels and all these 3D printer experts, they're giving you more advanced information. That's where the intimidation comes in. Uh, when Bill did his course on 3D printing, Tinkercad, it was just like starting with A, B, and C. It was like, I can do this. And I have, and I haven't stopped.
So okay. So as a beginner, is there any danger to any of this element, like the hot plastic or getting hurt by the machine
So
itself?
the way you can get hurt by the machine itself is you want to touch the hot end after you've been running the machine just to see how hot it can be.
So don't touch the hot
Right.
end.
Yeah, don't lick it,
Mama
James.
says don't touch that pot on the stove, right? And
Yeah, that's something I'm not very good about. I always, when I'm told not to
well,
do something, I always try it.
to be honest, I touched the hot end just for one day. Just
Yeah. Okay. So you
yeah,
did it too.
yeah.
Okay. How'd it feel?
Wait, why'd you do that?
Was it
Oh,
hot?
damn hot.
Okay.
So
Okay. It was
Why I do
hot.
this
well,
podcast?
See, I'm Bill.
okay, so
Bill, I'm learning
200.
things. The hot end is
So
hot.
for the filament that I'm using, like your basic filament, it's burning at 220, 230 degrees Celsius. But no, so we're talking like upwards to 400 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mikey, I respect that you didn't trust them and you verified that they were giving you a hot end.
Yeah, you know what? I'm telling you, you do that at some point. Like if you get filament that's stuck and a mess.
What the heck is going on over
I think it's James Donkeys. They're kind of like messing
there? James Donkey's taking off with
Damn
the driver
donkeys are
lawnmower.
trying to get in the
around. I love
garage.
that he's got donkeys. He's got donkeys.
Huh?
But anyways, yeah. So like it really, I mean, outside of what you want to build and design, it is limitless. There's like, I can't show you because I don't have one with me, but my son is a millwright with his Milwaukee pack out systems. I downloaded a file from one of the sites, Thingiverse. I'll give them a shout out. And you give the designer a tip like $5 because the design was a hanger for his toolbox that is designed for those specific toolbox. But it's quite the entertaining hanger because it's the middle finger. The guys in the shop, they loved it, so we ordered a spool of red filament, and we just ran off a bunch of those for the guys at the shop. He got a lot of free lunches out of the deal, and these guys got all these great little hangers for their toolboxes. So, I mean, whether you need something for tools, there's people that are making bits and parts for tools. For me exclusively, it was stuff that I wanted for my enclosures because I work with a lot of small enclosures, like the little Exoterras 18 by 18s and stuff. So a lot of the stuff that is being made are really great for larger enclosures. But for me, having a 3D printer was about really making things smaller to fit my needs for my reptiles and their enclosures. And I know, yeah, James, I sent you like those big, yeah. So those are the big ones.
I love
Yeah,
them.
I have the smaller ones. My chameleon every morning, she's dialed in. She goes in and she's waiting by it because she's waiting for breakfast. So that's a great thing.
Yep.
Just give me a sec here.
And James, outside of touching the hot end, as far as danger, there are some of the more advanced filaments that you want that are toxic. The fumes when it's melted,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
so you have to do it in a highly ventilated area.
Yeah.
So you don't want.
So it does have a smell when the process is
If you
working.
use,
Well, I don't know how much it smells, but it is toxic, like
yeah.
ABS, and there's some other
Yeah.
more advanced
So
materials. The basic
PVC would
materials,
probably.
PLA, PETG, are not toxic.
Okay. And are these products toxic after the fact?
No,
After
sorry,
it's
give me a
made?
sec.
no, they're only toxic because they are at the melting point, and
Okay.
at that when it's that hot, that's when you get
The
the
fumes.
gassing. The
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. I understand that part of it.
yeah, it's
Where'd
kind of
Mikey
like
go?
PVC.
Where's Mikey?
I'm using an excuse to
Oh,
show
there he
my
is.
T-shirt.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, yeah. So, for example, I have my printer here in the basement with me, where we watch TV and do games and stuff. It's on one end of the room, and I primarily just use PLA plastic, and really the smell isn't so strong. It's not that really strong. When you got reptiles and other pets, really you don't notice the smell of PLA. But for ABS plastic,
Here's another.
definitely use it outside.
Yeah. Okay. Another question I have. So let's say I've got two. Let's say the part I want to make is just too damn big
Mhm.
to put in this machine. Can I make two parts and glue them
Yep,
together?
absolutely. And you know that because Bill, for his enclosures, he did the that part that joins the two rectibreezes. Yep.
yeah.
So when you have something
Okay.
that's too big, you just got to basically cut your design into quadrants or parts, and then later connect them. And connecting, you can do.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
can connect them with screws, magnets, or even interlocking designs that lock
Yeah,
together.
people use.
Is there
Yep,
glues
people.
too that you can use? And is there special glue that you use for this type
A
of
lot of people
plastic?
just use Gorilla Glue, which
Okay.
you pretty
Okay.
much would be.
One of my
Yeah,
favorites,
yeah, yeah.
definitely.
You know what? I'm reaching out to the Flex Seal guys and guys because I mean you got to get some support. But yeah, I mean
I
everybody's
know.
using
I know. Also Hydro too. They need to
Gorilla.
buddy up. Yes, exactly. I love. You know what's really nice is the stuff that's called gel, and it's a super glue that is
It's a gel.
gelled so that it will stick horizontally.
Yeah, it's a gel.
It won't just run down when you put it on something. You can it'll actually stick to whatever you're doing. I like the gel super glue or
Yeah,
Gorilla Glue
yeah,
gel.
yeah, for sure.
Um, so how about okay? So now that I've made something, let's say um, the color of plastic that it comes in, I just don't like it. But I want the product and I want to do this. Can I sand it and paint it and maybe do a little bit of sculpting with it after the fact?
Well, I mean, there's a rainbow of colors out there available. So if there's
Okay.
specific colors you want, right now with all the stuff that I'm printing, I'm going to show off this guy. I don't know if you can see the colors.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can.
So basically, it's a
And
combination of
can those
it's
colors?
green and blue.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Can those colors be added a little bits at a time? Like, well, let's say I really wanted
Mhm.
camo.
So you
Could I print
you can
camo?
get filaments that have combination of different colors. So uh, they kind of blend into each other.
So it's actually in the plastic as it's going
Yep,
in.
there's different types of filament that have different colors. So as it prints, you kind of get a rainbow effect of colors. If you wanted to print camo, it'd be a complex design because you'd have to get like kind of, you can buy for certain printers a multi-filament unit, so you can put different colors of filament. And when you slice your design and you want camo, you would then put into the system that you want this part this color, this part that color. That becomes very complex if you want camo. But I mean, with the color assortment of PLA plastic, like there's even wood textured PLA plastic. So if you want that wood look,
now we're talking.
yeah.
Okay.
Now you're talking my language.
Actually, that's the next.
See, now I'm starting to get interested.
So that's the next filament I want to work with, because I've started working with silk. Silk gives you that nice shine. You can get the iridescence of different colors. You know, at the expos, the 3D printer guys are selling all the toys. They're selling tons of bearded dragons that are blue, reds, and purples. And they sell them like hotcakes because, you know, mom and dad's not going to buy their kid a live bearded dragon. 3D printed is the next one.
But they'll buy them a plastic one.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good idea. Pretty good idea.
And, you know, it's not just for making toys. It's just like, again, for the enclosures, whatever you need, like Bill designed the fogger inputs. You know, if you've tried them, you know, it's just like, it's a simple thing, but it's a game changer, right? You're going to a hardware store, you're trying to buy fittings for this and that.
I really, it seems like a specialty market. I'm looking to have some design elements made out of plastic for my foggers. I've got a couple of ideas that I've taken from an industrial fogger that I purchased, and I see how they've slowed down the flow and added. And so there's some dampers, but there's a bunch of plastic elements that I think that maybe you and I put our brains together, we might be able to come up with some
challenge
parts,
accepted,
that will enhance foggers. You know, keeping the fan dry, slowing the flow of the fog coming out so it has enough time to build up in the fog. You know me, I'm always trying to think of ways to make, you know, foggers better.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And that was the thing. When I first was like looking at the 3D printing world, like everybody was talking about all the money you can make and this and that. To be honest, I'm having more fun doing and building things for our community than trying to sell it online and going through the hassle of selling something that,
you know, and that's,
you know, anybody can make it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. It's, you know, I've joined this community to be part of it, not to make profit off of it. So I think that's awesome. We can give these ideas to people and let them make them themselves, you know. And I hope that you're open to giving, you know, more ways of how these things work to our viewers.
Anytime you got a question.
I think it's awesome.
Anybody's got a question.
He has every Chameleon Academy Journal magazine. There's a project from Mikey. He just gives the file.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. Well, we definitely need to collaborate on some parts. I got the ideas. I don't know how to implement them. I'm not going to sit down. I'm too old to learn a 3D printer. I know all of this stuff. You know that stuff.
Hey, how
together,
old?
You know, that's how it works.
35, right? 35?
Not that old.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 29 next year.
Okay, well, I'm 32.
Yeah.
Plus minus.
Yeah, plus or minus 40 years.
So, you know, I jumped into it. I learned it. And I'm still learning it. And, you know, like anybody in the community.
I'm having a hard enough time, Mikey, filming things and sending them to people.
That's why I don't film.
That's, you know, and now you want me to learn 3D printing?
I'm your guy.
James has just figured out
No,
Google
I'm not
Drive.
saying I couldn't, and I think it would be neat, and I would love to see how you do.
I'm in your corner, and for like the Illuminati that tends to congregate in the mornings, there's something you want. Challenge
Yep.
accepted. I'll put it out there. Challenge
Okay.
accepted.
Hey, James, I said, you know what? I want something that I can put on a Mist King mister so the mist doesn't go up through the top and hit the lights. Within
Yeah.
48 hours, I had a design in my email.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And it's
Well,
up
I'm
there right
thinking
now working.
Yeah, I
fogger
saw
diffuser,
that
and I'll
on your
give you the
podcast
sizes
this
of what
morning, on your
be.
vlog.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's because, like I was saying, I looked at my industrial fogger inside, and it has these diffusers that don't allow the fog to go straight out the hole. It actually makes it curl around and go up, which slows down, which allows you to accumulate some more extra fog instead of just having it. I'm having to set my fogger off to one side of the interior of the fogger so that it has enough time to build up before it goes out. Well, I won't have to do that if I've got a way of diffusing the fog that's going out. And then, of course, there's also protecting the fan from splash.
Yeah, with it.
Which is
Your
pretty.
diffuser's what?
Which is a pretty big
2.5-inch hose?
Go ahead.
2-inch hose? Your diffuser for your hose?
The hose going out, but you got to remember that the actual size is 3 and
that's
5/8. The hole that's actually in the bucket, and then the fan is 4.5 inches. That's the two sizes of those two holes. So it would have to fit in that, and then the fan could sit on top of that. Same thing when I'm screwing that down. That's the one that's going to be a little more tricky because it's going to need to have a radius so that when I screw that drain together, it'll fit between the drain and the rubber grommet.
You can design it.
Tricky.
You can design it.
Mikey eats tricky for breakfast.
You can design things with threads. I made phone holders for the airplane that you can adjust, and it comes with a threaded bolt. So you can make a diffuser. You can put threads on it if you want to screw your hose to it too. Like, it's the design aspect takes the longest because you do something. Again, you're checking your measurements and all that stuff, and that's where the hardest part.
Specking it out.
That seems the hardest part. You print it once on your printer, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't work out. You make some adjustments. That's the tinkering process, is when you actually go to print. But the design process, like when you're sitting there and you're, just looking for something to do, it's almost like a great little hobby. Like if you're doing puzzles and other things like Sudoku. Working on Tinkercad is my version. I hate math. I hate numbers, but I have no problem with Tinkercad and measurements.
Does this stuff warp at all?
Not that I've known so far. I mean, if it gets in something that's hot enough and it kind of melts it away at it, but
you can. Yeah, I mean, something like, okay, so this piece right here, this is made of PLA. The different plastics have different resistance to UVB and heat. Like PLA, that's the most common plastic. It has a lower melting temperature, which is why it's so easy to work with. But if you do something like this, which is thin, and we make it out of PLA, which has a low melting temperature, and then I put it out in the sun, it will warp.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
But there are filaments that are designed for outdoor use that will be
can handle the heat. Okay, that's neat. That's really neat.
You know about ABS plastics, right? ABS plastics, like for plumbing.
Yes, I know very much.
So if you're going to do something like for an outside enclosure, you print it in ABS plastic, it's going to last as long as your enclosure, if not longer, because ABS plastic is designed to resist everything.
Okay, so what about something like hinges?
You can do hinges.
And they would be strong enough to support a certain amount of weight?
It depends on, again, if you're using the type of filament. If you want in strength, ABS plastic, you're not going to break it.
And there's some carbon fiber filament.
Okay, carbon fiber. Very
A lot
strong.
of people.
They're serious
I'm just
stuff.
thinking indoor, outdoor. Everything I think about nowadays is all around modifying and making ways of making our enclosures better, and doing it ourselves.
Mhm.
I don't mind spending money on a pre-made product, but the joy that I get out of creating it myself um, is really, so these kinds of things are roadblocks for me because I have to go purchase them.
Right.
Um, and if we
Yep.
could make them just like we're making the enclosures, I think it's a great avenue and a great way to put a little group of a community together that can make certain things and for the products that we're doing, and we can help each other come up with some great stuff to
Yeah.
help the community.
And again, community is the key word right there, because for me, when I go to like the reptile expos, there's three people there that I look forward to talking to, and it's just about 3D printing. It isn't about the reptiles that we work with, it's about the 3D printing. I was having issues with some of my
Right.
stuff not printing very cleanly, and you can watch hours of YouTube and people will say, try this, try that, try that. You know, you reach out to a buddy on Instagram and says, okay, here's my problem. And he comes back to you in 5 minutes and says, try this. You replace a certain part, the extruder, and yeah, again, I'm back to racing and putting like prints out like crazy, just for fun.
So, so these extruders, are they basically like the tips you put on a cake
Nope.
maker?
So basically, an extruder is just
Different
it's just two
sizes,
little
different.
wheels in a little case with some gears, and the filament goes in between, and that just pushes the filament in. And as your hot end is traveling between the design of the project, it also retracts the filament. So you try when you really get into it and you look at how an extruder works, it's pretty crazy. These two little wheels with the little motor and the gears, how quickly it just pushes the filament into the hot end to melt the plastic so fast, and also pulls it back enough that it's not throwing strings all over the place while you're making a design of anything. And that's just part of the learning curve. Like when you go with the basics, you just go, okay, I want to make a box, just to put like, here, I made a little turtle thing just out of like simple symmetric shapes. Don't ask me what I'm going to put
Right.
in it. I just did it for fun. I was bored one day. I'm
Yeah.
Netflixed out, so I have more fun in front of the Tinkercad program.
Yeah, and we talk about the community. I mean, James could say, "This is what I
Yep.
need." Give dimensions to Mikey, who James is in California. Can give dimensions to Mikey, who's in
Yep.
Canada, on the east coast of Canada, and Mikey can design it, test it, print out a file, and send that file to James so James can print it. But if James doesn't have a printer, well, Mikey can send the file to me. I can print it out and send the parts to
Yep.
James. And it's like there's this whole we can all work
It
on
Network.
it.
is. Yep. It
Yep.
is a network. And that's why I find like the whole idea of like when people on YouTube are talking about the money they're making on 3D printing, they're really going more towards a niche market of like character figures for the gaming world and stuff. But if you're talking about everyday items that you want to use, you're not going to sit there and print, hundreds of these parts and hopefully sell on a marketing website. You're just going to print it for what you need, and if a buddy needs some, you send them some their way, and you share that with the community, and you start building that community. I've got something. Again, one of the guys I talked to at the expos, he made a little cap for the what's it, Zoom Ed, the multivitamins. Instead of just uncapping it and trying to sprinkle it, it just pops on top of it. I'm not the best talker, but boy, this little thing here,
Oh,
yeah,
salt shaker.
there, goes right down.
No, but it fits on the lid of your. Yeah, very
And you
cool.
know what?
Very
works.
cool. You could just sprinkle a little. It's almost like taking your chameleon out
Yep,
to dinner. You can just sprinkle a little on your cockroach before
yep.
you
I
feed
use
it to
that.
them.
Yep,
How cool
and
is
I
that?
use that when I'm dusting the fruit flies for the baby geckos. It works.
You can dust
I
fruit
do.
flies?
I dust them with calcium.
How do you hold those little buggers
No,
still? Huh?
You got to 3D print tweezers, James.
Oh, okay. Just over here, just trying to figure it
it's
out.
all good. It's all good. But yeah, the
Bill,
community of 3D printing.
Bill, Mikey sprinkles dust food on his fruit flies.
Hey, he's from Canada, you know.
Hey,
Yeah, gets cold and
listen, my
lonely up there, I hear.
tachydramas, they grow great with them. My day geckos, they grow great. When you're dusting uh, baby food, or sorry, when you're dusting fruit flies for your baby geckos and stuff, those things they work great. You're not wasting the calcium and taking a spoon out of a jar. But that's the community. Like
Yeah.
you say, hey,
Yeah, no, that's super neat.
Yeah. What's
Super
really
neat.
cool for us, us three, is we're working in the community. We want to help the community give better
oh hell
husbandry.
yeah.
And so that's why, you go to the journal. I give a free design every issue. It's just a lot of fun, and it brings us all together and moves our husbandry forward.
Yeah. It's great for our animals. It's great for the community, and it's a great place to just
Yeah,
bring people together.
exactly.
You
So
know.
it's like somebody is going to need something for their enclosure, and even its cost for certain products out there from the big manufacturers, can be pricey. The cost of what you print on a
Yeah.
3D printer, like you know, and Bill taught me this how to calculate the actual cost of 3D printing items. And when you factor in your time, your design, and all that, still the price of an item that is cost like pennies versus going to a store and spending $10 on an item.
Okay. So the super big question is, what is it going to cost me to get started? I want to have all the crap sitting right here. I want to plug it in, and I want to start printing stuff. What am I looking at with when I take my Visa
Yep.
card out, because my wife won't let me buy it, and I swipe that card? What is it?
Okay,
What is the charge?
I got lucky. My wife.
I want the plastic.
Yep.
I want the machine. I want it
So
all.
it depends. If you want to go through the avenue of a new machine, or nowadays, because a lot of people are getting the lower end models, and after working with them, they're going into the higher end models. So you can buy like a low end model, and it sounds bad, low end, but if you're building basic things, it's not. Like for $200, you can get a 3D printer, and for a lot of the basic stuff that you want to build with basic shapes, basic designs, so $200 on the 3D printer, and on some of those models, you can buy brand new. It doesn't even have to be used. And then, like for me in Canada, it's $25 for a roller filament, which is like
Okay, so the filament's
filament
fairly
is cheap.
inexpensive too. And how far will
Depends
that
what you
filament
build.
go?
So when I was
Within reason, let's say I'm going to build a couple of feeder
Well, we
cups.
do it by weight.
right,
So it's a kilogram
Okay,
of filament,
that's how.
and how much does this
yep.
weigh?
Okay,
So
okay, that's a
yeah,
great
so if you
great
take like
answer there.
the Bill Strand adapters for the enclosures, you could probably build 100 of those on one spool at least.
Oh my
Maybe,
goodness!
my worst
Yeah.
guess. I'm a terrible guesser, but yeah, you take a spool, which is like 2 kilograms, so what, about 5 pounds maybe, and sorry, 4 pounds, 4.5 pounds, and that's going to print you like 100 plus of those parts. Like the little.
Oh yeah, my wife wanted. I made these for her geckos.
Gecko.
To where this is just a clip. You attach this to the side of a hybrid cage with screws, and you can just slip in
Pop that guy.
your cup here. And so this is so you can take your cup out, and you just take this whole thing out. And she wanted 100 of them, and I said, okay, and I just printed 100. And it was about, I don't know, it was less than a spool.
Yeah.
And how long did that take, Bill?
That took a number of days, and it was on a
Okay.
slower printer. When you start looking
Okay.
into printers, you'll notice that there's print speeds, and that was on a slower printer. I have two printers. One's faster, and that would knock it out in an afternoon.
And so after it's printed, do you have to physically be there to knock that guy off so the next one can get started?
Well, you've got that much, however much space you have, and
Okay, so you can print
you can print 10 of
as
them at a
much as
time.
will fit in the area of the tray. That okay, so you can do 5 or 6 at a time.
Yeah. Whatever fits on the plate. Yeah. So again, it's endless possibilities which you can build. If it's something that you need, I see people like they're taking materials and they're building like tools with it. You're not going to build a hammer, but they're building like knives and stuff. And you're like a plastic knife. Well, you print it and then you just finally sharpen that little edge to it. Yeah, it cuts lettuce pretty good for something that costs pennies.
Yeah.
And James, you can even print in thin air.
Oh, come on now.
You can even print a whole bridge between two pieces. I could print these two pieces and put an entire bridge across it.
Oh.
And there's a little bit of physics magic, as well as there's things called supports, to where it will do little pylons, little pillars, and just to support everything.
I did see something.
But then it's easily taken off, and then you've got your part.
Okay, and how do you take them off?
Pull apart.
It just snaps off very quick, very easily.
Oh,
they make the connections just enough so there's support, but not so much that it's hard to break it off.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, so for the person,
so kind of like what they used to do with when I was a kid, we used to make models, and you get this plastic sheet with all these little parts in it, and they were all attached to the little, and you had to get your little X-Acto knife out and cut those little pieces out, and then you can start building your project.
And it's easier than that.
Something like that.
It's easier than that.
It's easier than that.
Yeah, you just pull apart. Yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah, you just poke your fingers through it and it goes.
So
neat.
Yeah, so like if you're a person that's interested in 3D printing and don't know where to start, it's just like get a cheap machine and just start there with the basics of what you want to build, what you want to design. You don't need to start off with like, oh yeah, I'm going to have all these great plans to build this and that. Just start off like when I did the feeding perches, because a feeding ledge is great for a gecko with the toe pads, but when you have a chameleon, you can't really grab onto it. So, a couple of circles, a couple of little straight lines to support them, and my chameleon just grabs onto it.
Yeah, the ones you sent me are really neat. Really neat. They're perfect idea.
One day.
Okay, one other question I have for you. What's cleanup like? Let's say you're done. You're done with the machine. What do we got to do to make sure that it's ready to go the next time?
Clean your build plate. So the plates that your model is built upon, that's what you got to keep clean. So when you do print, everything sticks to it properly. And for me, in my case, with the printer that I have, because my wife's been really great and pushed me to get a upper level model right off the bat,
Your wife?
Yeah, I did the same thing. That was my reaction.
Man, you must be a good.
I hope so. Yeah.
I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask permission.
I just put it out there like, hey, I want to get a 3D printer, and the conversation was like, well, why? And just like this, that, and well, eventually I want to upgrade. It's just like, well, why are you going to do that? And just go for what you want to get and be done with it. So yeah, I did get an upper end model. Like they're cost.
You got a great one.
Yeah. So the K1
and a great wife.
She's a keeper.
Yeah. Mine's pretty supportive too.
Yeah, I think that's why we're here, right?
Y-
We've got pretty good
Yep.
pillars behind us.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been lucky. But for
Yeah.
the cleanup of the machine, like after I'm done the print, I just remove the print, clean the build plate
Uh-huh.
that it's on, and that's it.
It's easy.
So yeah, so there's
There's
no
there's
like
maintenance,
I'm envisioning like my tools sometimes when I get done doing a bunch of sawing, I've got to blow all
right?
the sawdust out. I've got to lube it up. I've got to
Yeah,
make sure that all the parts are cleaned. I have to do that at least every other week, just to make sure that the tool continues to function properly. It's that and saw blades have
yeah,
to be replaced. And if you don't do that kind of maintenance, well, then your
yeah.
tool
And
is going to
really,
fall apart.
the maintenance for a 3D printer, it's just keeping the axis parts clean, like where the platform, depending on your machine, if it's the platform that moves or the bars that the hot end is moving on, you keep those clean. Just a small, gentle lube on it. It's really not.
What kind of
There's
lube?
greases that you can get. It's not like you just go to the hardware store. I just use the one that came with the printer.
So no
No,
WD
WD
40.
40 is great, but it's too messy on
Oh,
there. You're just using more of the grease.
come on. WD 40
I
works on
know, but it makes
everything.
a mess. No, it's just like it's a
All
very light
right.
grease. I mean, with Creality, everything's in Asian, so I haven't used Google Translate yet to like, decipher what's on the packaging. One day I will, but yeah, it's just really keeping it clean. I'll take a vacuum like once a month because there'll be like maybe some strands that you don't really pick up and notice right away. And I just take a vacuum into the unit and just like let it suck up any loose dirt. It's pretty clean machine. It's not really like you're gonna have like when you work with wood, you get sawdust everywhere, right? I mean, you clean your ears like a Q-tip in the morning and there's sawdust. But yeah.
Your nose. Your nose. You blow your nose after a day of work and you go,
Oh
oh
yeah,
my
like I
goodness.
mean, I've worked a lot in the garage building stuff. And the 3D printer is probably the cleanest machine I've ever worked with in terms of building and creating. Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that.
pretty.
All right,
I
Mikey,
like that.
you just relatively recently started with
I
3D
did.
printing,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. It was well
Okay. So,
halfway through 2023 is when I really got seriously into it. It was towards the tail end of 2023. Just when you started going into the 3D printing and you said you're going to do your course, and I said, hell yeah, I'm in. Because I was watching a lot of the YouTube channels. They make it sound like it's going to be simple, but when you're watching half an hour to an hour, these guys really are advanced, and it becomes intimidating because you don't realize the mistakes you can make. And it's easy to make
mhm,
certain mistakes just because you're dealing with millimeters or half a millimeter. And the supports is a big secret. It's not a secret, but it's something we don't think about when you're designing stuff. Your
rafts.
rafts, yeah. Yeah, actually, I learned raft from Bill. Before that,
Oh, okay.
nobody on YouTube talked about rafts. I'm like, what's a raft? But
Uh, so, putting yourself back in when you started, and so we want to go back to that time, which many of our viewers are probably at that time. What was the most, or not the most, but what were the intimidating things that were really big on your mind as keeping you back, making you hesitant?
what if I run into a print problem? Like I get this mess of strands all over the place, and what do I do with the machine? Am I going to have to take it to a shop and pay a technician to work on it?
Mm.
And for me, where I bought my machine, they do classes, they do teachings how to basically like be your own mechanic. YouTube, there's a lot of videos out there that can help you resolve issues. So it was that little fear factor, boy, I'm gonna get this machine and something goes wrong. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna fix that? Once you start getting into the communities and you start talking to people, like reptile people, you get people that like to talk and share everything with you. And you know what? From there, it's just like you don't care. You got no fear. You're just gonna do it. If it doesn't work, you're gonna go back to the drawing board, you know, tweak it, and you're gonna go back and fix it again. And for me, you know, first time I had my bird's nest, it's just like, oh my god, why did this happen? You know, I reached out to a buddy. It's just like I got a bird's nest. I can't think why because this is a brand new machine. It was just a simple thing. I didn't do my build plate.
And what's a bird's
The
nest?
bird's nest is when your design starts printing and then the strand doesn't stick to the next level or the next layer and it just starts carrying, it's melting plastic, and next thing you know, you have a bird's nest. So when you're building something that takes a few hours, like you want to check in once in a while just in case something clogged up. Because the other thing too with filament is humidity is a factor. It plays in the part through the filament and how it melts. So those are things you start learning about. Okay, why is my filament giving me problems when I print? And you start assessing, okay, is it humidity? Maybe there's too much humidity. Because I have reptiles in my area, you know, I bought a dryer for my filament. So if I notice that halfway through the spool, I'm getting like some bad print quality, I'll put that spool in the dryer for 3 hours or so, and it just dries it out, and it starts going again. So you start learning how to maintain your machine. You start learning how to troubleshoot your machine. It's just time as you go through experience. Like, you know, the first time you swung a hammer, you probably hit your thumb and knocked it out, right? I did. Yeah. So
if I'm not bleeding at 8 o'clock, I'm not at work.
yeah. So
All right.
and that was
So, Mikey,
that was my fear.
when you so when you finally got your machine, how hard was it to get started?
Not hard. Not hard at all. So with mine, it was new out of the box. It came with programs just to calibrate itself. So, you know, the auto bed leveling, you'd hear that a lot. If your prints are kind of a little bit off, maybe it's the leveling. The machine I got, the K1, it does its self calibration before every print. And it was just like, yep, connect the spool of filament uh, and just ran the calibration. And then they give you a couple models to test it to make sure everything printed. The benching, right? The little famous little boat. You print that, and really, that's what it was. It's just like it's that simple. It's not that bad at all. And even with the lower end
Yeah,
models, it's not that bad. It's just calibration might be something that you got to calibrate it. Calibrating is just making sure it's level. And the machines nowadays they do that by themselves.
yeah. For the 3D printing technology, like a decade ago, it was. I'm not sure when it first started, but when it first started, it was like a hacker's
Yeah.
paradise, and you had to be a hacker to figure out how to put it all together and make it all work. And it was like black magic because you had to do little
Yeah.
adjustments, but the technology has advanced to the point where it now you can buy it. I mean, even on sale around here, there's a store around here that sells them for around $100 on sale. But even somebody who doesn't have technical ability can come home. The instructions are good enough that it will run through, it'll self calibrate, it'll self level, and then it'll say, okay, here's files for you. You don't even have to learn to design anything. You just say, okay, that file, and it'll print for you. And so it's getting to the point where it's easily mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of videos that shows you A to Z on how to print something. Because again, when you're trying to edit it for like YouTube or whatever, but when you go through the process of yourself of like spooling up and getting it calibrated and putting in your design, it's not that hard. You're like, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. So, James, we'll have to get you designing things, sending them to Mikey, and
Mm-hmm.
somewhere along the way, we'll have to make sure that a 3D printer ends up on your bench and you can start playing with it yourself.
Who has the power?
Oh, oh goodness.
We could get James
Well, I
started
tell you, it's
baby steps. We could get him on Tinkercad, have him design something,
Yeah.
send it to one of us, and then we print it out for him. And that's all it's going to take for him to get addicted to it.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I do have. I'm kind of impressionable that way.
You've fallen in with the wrong crowd, James.
No, I think I got the right crowd.
Because once you start figuring out, hey, wait a minute, you know that little bracket that I put on the side that I have my cup holders. Well, you know what happens if I just designed a plant pot holder and it would just slide into the same
What?
thing? And then you start thinking, what else could I
That's
make?
the rabbit hole.
And it just goes on.
Yeah, that's the rabbit hole. You start building one thing, and then you start
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh, what if I do this? What if I do that?"
But you can build latches and hinges and all sorts of stuff that is custom made for your exact application.
Oh,
And so it's
Yeah,
you know what,
amazing.
and
James?
I see a big window for that because there is a lot of times where I go, man, this is just not working, and you'll see it in my bucket focker. I've got a trough that I ended up using a paint bucket for as a fill bucket because they just don't make anything for it. And so that's something that there's a few things for these foggers that I had to just wing it and buy what they have off the shelf and modify it to meet my expectations. And if I could actually design
Mhm.
something that works for what I need it for, boy, that would change. That'd be a game changer,
Here,
definitely,
It's a great tool for us
definitely.
chameleon
here,
people,
here,
reptile
here's
people.
another one up for you, James. Because remember on your last video, you guys were talking about the handles, right? And when you want to
Mm-hmm.
make handles for your doors, for your enclosures, well,
I can
why
do
don't you
that. I can do
3D
that.
print like something custom, like something?
Yeah, some
Yeah,
freaking chameleon tail that screws on the top and it's got its
yeah,
head
you can
caught.
make custom door handles
Yeah, I
like
could
that
do.
for your enclosures. Like
Yeah, some hobbity looking
you
chameleon thing. Yeah, I
yeah,
I get it. Leaves, plastic leaves on the
you
exterior of
want to take
of
their
the
names and
enclosure.
make a little plaque for the
Um, you
bottom
know,
of the enclosure so they have their name there. So
yeah, that's
that's the
another
thing that
cool idea.
happens. Like, an anvil falls out of the
Yeah,
sky, hits you on the head, and next thing you know, those birds are tweeting ideas on you.
yeah, but then I start losing sleep, Mikey.
But you're happy.
That's true.
You know,
That is very true. And
yeah,
so are my chameleons,
you get wired up.
which makes me happy, which starts the whole
Yeah,
process over again.
it is like a whole world out there of things that you want to you get into. And again, once you get into the community and you find the right people that love talking about 3D printing, and they start sharing ideas, and it within our community, the ideas that we started sharing, and it's like, yeah, it's endless. And for any,
Yeah, I know. I know
yeah,
what
like I
you're
said,
feeling.
you got
I've
the
been
idea,
feeling it
send it
too.
my way. Challenge accepted. I'll do it.
Yeah, watch. I'll show you how to make it. No, I'm not going to sell it to you, but I'll show
Yeah.
you how to do
Well,
it.
Yeah, and I got to say, it is amazing that you can say, okay, I need this, and it didn't exist before, and you design it,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it is appearing on your printer, something that never existed before. You need, and people aren't making it because you can't. I mean, they can't find customers for 10,000, 100,000 of them.
exactly.
Well, I don't. This is I only want one. Well, now I'm actually sending them to friends and putting them somewhere, and so I'm making a lot more of these. So that's just what happens.
Yeah.
But that's the thing too. You start making things for friends, and they, it's like they come back, throw a couple bucks at you to replace filament, or they buy you lunch out of it. And
Or send you something they make.
Yeah, and now Mikey's sending me files, and I'm printing them.
well, you know what? It's a blast. Actually, when Bill first took the purchase and put on his journal, it was like,
Yeah,
I'm a printer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not artistic.
that's right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not artistic at all. I'm a MacGyver guy. Give me duct tape and bubble gum, and I'll build you a house. But anything that's got to be pretty and very elegant looking, yeah. I'm very simple. Give me squares and circles and triangles. Sure, I'll build you anything you want.
All right, folks, we need to be wrapping this up. And so, just final words. James?
Well, I think that it's very interesting. Before this conversation, I was like, meh, 3D printer. Now that we've had this conversation, it's definitely brought some things to my attention. It doesn't seem as intimidating as it did in the beginning. Um, I think this is something that I might be looking a little more into, and I think that we're going to talk a lot more about it in the future.
Oh, this is going to be a cornerstone of reptile husbandry going forward. It really is. The power and the capability that it gives us is unmatched.
Yeah, think about it this way. Let's say you have like a handful of enclosures, and there's certain parts you want to apply to those enclosures. If you had to go to a reptile, if you go to ZooMed or Exoterra,
I've played
you want to
this
buy
game
parts,
before.
even
Yes. Open your wallet and pray that you can get
but
what
with
you
3D
want.
printers, it's like you know what it is that you want, and you can design it or talk to other people in your community. It's like, this is what I'm trying to design, and you can print as many as you want, and a couple cups of coffee, and that's all it costs you.
Yeah.
All right, Mikey, any last words from you?
No. Thank you guys for having me on. I love the segment of the DIY chameleon guys, and and again, anything I can do to contribute to our community, I'm in. So,
Okay.
Awesome.
And I will say on my side, I love 3D printing. It's amazing to be able to be putting together a cage setup and saying, God, I really wish I had this. Really wish I had standoffs for the bottom of the cage. And then boom, tomorrow I've got standoffs. Oh, I really wish I had a fogger input. And boom, where is it? There it is. Within a couple of hours, there's a fogger input. And so it's just an amazing ability. And I would say it does seem intimidating. And even though everything's on YouTube, that's still a lot. And when you go onto YouTube, you're going, oh my goodness, these people know a lot more than I don't know as much as they think I know. So I acknowledge it is a little bit intimidating, but it's getting more and more accessible. And you've got more and more people who are willing to help you through it. So if you're interested in 3D printing, start thinking about it. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, hit us up. Hit us up.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. And we'll see you later on the DIY Chameleon Guy.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Do
it yourself.